Hey, what's going on, guys? Kalamazi here. It's going to be my patch 11.1 Demonology Warlock DPS guide. In it, we're going to be covering talents, stat weights, tier sets, single target rotations, AOE rotations, and basically anything you need to know to be the best Demonology Warlock you can be in patch 11.1. Now, when it comes to Demonology Warlock's tier bonus in patch 11.1, the 2-piece says your spells and abilities have a chance to hit a jackpot, summoning a greater Dreadstalker at 265% effectiveness, and casting Summoning Demonic Tyrant always hits a jackpot, so it always summons that greater Dreadstalker. The 4-piece says Hand of Gul'dan causes your active Dreadstalkers, so both the greater Dreadstalker and the ones you have from baseline Demonology, to cast Dreadbite at 50% effectiveness. This damage is increased by 10% for each soul shard spent on Hand of Gul'dan. When it comes to stat weights for your Demonology Warlock, it's very important to drive home the fact that you should run your own sims on raidbots.com for your best secondary stat combinations. If you don't want to, you can follow the general priority of intellect being your strongest stat, so typically item level is of great value, followed by haste, versatility, critical strike, and then mastery. Now, getting into Demonology single target talents here, I will say off the bat that the actual spec tree stays the same for both Diabolist and Soul Harvester, which are your two hero talents of choice. I will say also here that Diabolist is going to be your best option in single target and AOE Mythic Plus. You're basically playing Diabolist everywhere. However, we'll cover Soul Harvester here a little bit in case you want to play that for whatever reason. The quality of life's pretty solid, and it's sort of fun to play with every once in a while. Diabolist is basically passive. You summon pets like Pit Lords, Mothers of Chaos, Fel Lords that empower your demons, empower your spells, and make things hit harder in general. Now, as far as the spec tree is concerned, if you've played Demonology over the past few tiers, it's the same thing. You're summoning imps, which you can implode in AOE. You have abilities like Called Dreadstalkers, Grimoire Felguard, Demonic Strength that do damage on a minute cooldown, 2-minute cooldown, 20-second cooldown, and effects that build upon them. Things like Sack Souls that increase Shadow Bolt and Demon Bolt damage based on the number of demons you have active. Demonic Tyrant is here in the middle of your tree with Reign of Tyranny that increases his damage. And the further you go down, you see things like Summon Vile Fiend, which turns into a purple or red dog with your capstone here, depending which one you choose. Purple is single target, red is AOE. Faharg and Chatu are the two dogs from Antorus, Fellhounds of Sargeras. That boss, they're right here. You can literally control them as a Demonology Warlock. Outside of that, Doom has changed to basically be how it was in Dragonflight with your tier set. Whenever you cast Demon Bolt, it applies Doom to a target. You can summon a Doom Guard by doing that whenever it expires, and the whole tree basically builds upon summoning big demons, powering them, and just doing big damage. Now, if you're looking at playing Soul Harvester in single target, nothing changes in the actual spec tree itself. Soul Harvester is a little different than Hellcaller, but rotationally, pretty much exactly the same. Your capstone here is going to be called Shadow of Death. Whenever you cast your Demonic Tyrant, which is a minute cooldown, you will be granted 3 soul shards, which are also succulent, they're empowered, and do more damage to your Hand of Gul'dans. Besides that, you have things like Shared Fate, for example, that whenever a target dies, its soul is flung to a nearby enemy that pulses damage. Things like Cuitus, I believe it's called. That's the right way to say it. Whenever you cast a demonic core on a target, basically instant cast Demon Bolt, it will apply a Shared Fate, so it's almost like having a second version of Doom. Besides that, Necrolite Teachings builds upon Shadow Bolt damage, other abilities build upon other things as well, Satyal's Volition, Wicked Reaping, so on and so forth. Both hero talents for Demonology are essentially passive, barring 1 or 2 little abilities, like Ruination, that's empowered from your Pit Lord, Diabolist-wise, or Soul Harvester with Shared Fate spreading in Mythic Plus. But for the most part, regardless of Diabolist or Soul Harvester, the spec tree itself stays exactly the same. Now, when it comes to Demonology Warlock in Mythic Plus or AOE-based settings, Diabolist is going to be your best option in hero talent over Soul Harvester once again. It's very hard to beat out Ruination Meteors from a Pit Lord, Mothers of Chaos cleaving, Fel Lords providing a lot of raw cleave as well, and the empowerment that they bring to most of your abilities. Soul Harvester is not terrible. Similar to what you saw in single target here, the actual talent tree itself does not change between Diabolist and Soul Harvester in Mythic Plus or AOE-based settings. Now, I will say these builds may change a bit over the next week or two, depending on tuning, buffs, and nerfs, and just in general. This is the build that I've played for most of PTR. Now, if you want to see if builds change, I encourage you to check my website, kalamazi.gg, which has the most up-to-date builds. If things do change, I will update that there. Now, these builds, like I said, do not change between Diabolist and Soul Harvester. They play the exact same talents. You're playing things like, at least I've been playing Shadow Invocation over things like Sack Souls and Mythic Plus. You're also playing your Red Dog here over Purple Dog. Red Dog pulses fire damage versus Purple Dog is having a basically single target gloom slash ability. I'm not playing Pact the Arrow Druid here, which is the Doom Guard. I'm opting to put a point over here in Flame Touched and keep the point in Antoran Armaments as well as Dread Calling, further empowering my Felguard and my dogs to max potential, working well with our tier set this patch as well. But at the same time, I have seen some people pull out of things like Shadow Invocation and hop into Sack Souls for a little more single target if need be. I wouldn't fault you for that, or hopping directly into something like Felsunder as well. But regardless, this is where I've been in AOE. It's strong. It brings a consistent stack cleave profile, which is what you often encounter in Mythic Plus in these stacked AOE base settings. Now, when it comes to Demonology in single target, the gist of it is you're casting Shadow Bolt to generate 1 Soul Shard. You'll cast Demon Bolts if you have Demonic Core procs, which makes them instant cast, which generate 2 Soul Shards. You then spend those Soul Shards on things like 3-shard Hand of Gul'dans, called Dreadstalkers, which cost 2 Soul Shards, Grimoire Felguard being a 2-minute cooldown cost 1, your Vile Fiend cost 1, so on and so forth. Now, Demonology's main cooldown is Demonic Tyrant, which is a 1-minute cooldown. It also extends the duration of your active demons and increases their damage when he's active for a certain period of time. Demonology has a minute ramp window where you want to cast a large amount of pets like your Vile Fiend or your Mark of Faharga Chatug, purple or red dog, your Grimoire Felguard, every other tyrant, a set of called Dreadstalkers, and 10 to 15 imps, depending how many you can get in before they begin expiring, in every single demonic tyrant window. That is the hardest part of mastering Demonology, is mastering the art of summoning as many demons as possible before your demonic tyrant, before they expire, and then casting him. Now, I do want to mention very briefly here as well, before we get into the actual rotations for Diabolist and Soul Harvester, that Grimoire Felguard is a 2-minute cooldown. Your Demonic Tyrant is a 1-minute cooldown. So basically you follow these large tyrant, small tyrant, large tyrant, small tyrant CD cycles with Demonology. Large tyrant being one with a Grimoire in it that you'll have on pole, and then basically 2 minutes later. The small tyrants being without Grimoires in between at that 1-minute mark. At the same time, Demonology has a lot of RNG to it through things like Shard refunds, Demonic Core procs, called Dreadstalkers, Demonic Calling procs, which can make them instant cast and cost no Soul Shards. So these procs and things may change how your opener goes. So you have to learn how to react to these accordingly. If you get a called Dreadstalkers proc in your opener, your Dreadstalkers are going to cost no shards and be instant cast. If you don't, you're going to have a cast time on them and cost 2 shards. That means you might have to cast 1 Demon Bolt after those dogs are cast, and then begin your Hand of Gul'dan cycling into your Tyrant. So learning how to react to procs is Demonology for shards, refunds, and just general procs that encompass, free dogs, so on and so forth, is important, and something I would encourage getting used to by hitting a dummy ahead of time if possible. Now, when it comes to Demonology in the single target, we're going to be playing Diabolist here for our hero talent of choice. You're going to have a lot of passive demons spawning in, being Pit Lords, Mothers of Chaos, Fel Lords from Diabolist, and what it does just passively through things like Ruination and things like Secrets of the Coven and Cloven Souls. It's also going to empower abilities, turning your Hand of Gul'dan into a Ruination Demonic Meteor, so on and so forth. Now, 2 add-ons I want to point out here before we get too far into this, or 2 weak cores, I should say. One is this right here. This is going to be an imp tracker. Right now it's showing me that I have 2 imps active. You can see 1 and 2 right here. There's 2. This one's going to expire in 2 seconds. He's going to expire basically now, and it goes to 1. When 1 spawns in here, it'll show me 2. This shows the number of active imps you have out and their remaining duration / cast they have, which is important in single target as well as AOE, which we'll get to in a minute here. I also have a handful of timers open on my actual bar here that shows the duration of my Felguard, well, Grimoire Felguard, my Vile Fiend or Gloomhound, and my Call Dreadstalkers. These are all important because you want to get a max number of pets out before you cast Demonic Tyrant. So they're also active when you cast him, so they're extended even further due to what Demonic Tyrant does with his extension and damage amp. Now, as far as rotation goes, we're going to wait till we have 2 imps active here, and you're going to pre-cast Power Siphon before the boss is pulled here. We're going to cast Siphon. This gives 2 Demonic Cores here. Then we're going to start off by pre-casting a Shadow Bolt into a Grimoire Felguard, Shadow Bolt again into our Gloomhound here, Shadow Bolt one more time, then cast Call Dreadstalkers and a handful of Hand of Gul'dan, Demon Bolt, Hand of Gul'dan, Demon Bolt cycles before we cast our Tyrant to just catch our Grimoire before it expires. They all extended, and you can see I have a handful of imps out here. Now, besides that, we're going to cast Demonic Strength after our Tyrant, trinkets and potions with your Tyrant as well if you have them, and basically just casting 3-shard Hand of Gul'dans and casting Called Dreadstalkers on cooldown here. You can cast Power Siphon on cooldown too, as long as you won't overcap on Demonic Cores, which I'm going to cast right now. And the one other important thing here is you want to cast your Gloomhound basically on cooldown in between each Tyrant as well, because Gloomhound is a half-minute cooldown and Tyrant is a minute cooldown. So if you miss casting him for a little bit or delay it, it sort of desyncs your Tyrant and cooldowns a minute or so later. Now, like I said, Tyrant's a minute cooldown, so I know roughly in about 20-ish seconds here, I want to be hitting my Tyrant again. So I'm going to look and see where my resources are at. I have 1 Demonic Core here, but I'm going to have 2 more now. My dogs are expiring. And right about now, I'm going to build the 5 shards here, cast one more Hand of Gul'dan, build the 5 shards here, and then cast Gloomhound. Gonna cast a Shadow Bolt again right here, cast Call Dreadstalkers, and cast a couple of Hand of Gul'dan, Demon Bolt, Hand of Gul'dan, Demon Bolt, Hand of Gul'dan, cycles into a Summon Demonic Tyrant. Right there to extend them all, catch my imps, and once again, demonic strength. Besides that, demonology is very simple. You're just casting, like I said, 3-shard Hand of Gul'dans, never less than 3, unless it's your final Hand of Gul'dan cast going into your tyrant for a couple more imps in his extension. Casting Dreadstalkers on cooldown, which is a 20-second cooldown, and casting basically your Gloomhound with tyrant in one time in between. Now, if you've opted to play Soul Harvester as your hero talent of choice for whatever reason for Demonology, it is not as good as Diabolist, but I want to show the single target opener here. It is very, very similar, but Soul Harvester, keep in mind, does have Shadow of Death, which gives you 3 Soul Shards whenever you cast your Demonic Tyrant, and they are also Succulent. Succulent Soul Shard empowers your next Hand of Gul'dan by 60% and unleashes your Demonic Soul, which does damage as well. The Demonic Soul is basically a part of Soul Harvester, being a guy in a backpack. Shows it behind you. You'll see what I mean. So same opener as we saw with Diabolist. You're going to pre-cast Power Siphon with 2 imps out, cast a Shadow Bolt into a Grimoire Felguard, Shadow Bolt into a Gloomhound, Shadow Bolt again into a set of Called Dreadstalkers here, Hand of Gul'dan, Demon Bolt, Hand of Gul'dan, Demon Bolt, Hand of Gul'dan, and then Demonic Tyrant. Look at the 3 shards coming here. We overcap. It's just RNG. Cast a Hand of Gul'dan right after that, followed by a Demonic Strength, and then just begin casting hands here. And that's the guy in the backpack, the purple guy coming out of my back right there, basically. He does that 3 times, basically, whenever you have those Hand of Gul'dan casts that are empowered by your succulent shards, so on and so forth. I do want to mention here as well, and this is both for Diabolist and Soul Harvester, is that Demonology has a decent bit of RNG to it. At times, you'll get Demonic Core procs, which make your dogs, or Called Dreadstalkers, instant cast. They cost no shards as well. So, with that being the case, you have to learn how to react to procs accordingly if you're playing Demonology. Sometimes your dogs may cost 0 shards, like right now. I can cast them essentially for free with no cast time. At times, they're going to cost 2 shards and it's going to have a cast time on them. That can happen in your opener or during Tyrant Ramp as well. So learning how to react to those procs, knowing, hey, I might have 2 extra shards here because I got a Demonic Calling proc in my Tyrant opener, for example, which you can leverage into more imps, is beneficial and lets you min-max Demonology to a higher level than what you would on average, not knowing that ahead of time. Demonology's rotation in AOE is not that different from what you do in single target. A lot of its damage profile is based around stat cleave. Things like your Dreadstalkers, they cleave passively while just being cast in single target. Things like Hand of Gul'dan, whenever they land, they splash damage. Now, you're going to cast most of your abilities like normal in AOE, but there's an ability called Implosion and the Implosion rotation that you want to follow, which is basically building towards 4 or 5 soul shards with a couple demonic cores active if possible, and casting a sequence of Hand of Gul'dan, Demon Bolt, Hand of Gul'dan, Demon Bolt, Hand of Gul'dan, and then building as many imps as possible before the first set expires, and then imploding. Now, at times you won't have demonic cores or demon bolts to do so you can still build 6 to 7, 8, or 9 imps and implode them before that first set expires. This is where an imp tracker weak core comes into play, which I have, and I will link in this video description below, which will show the remaining energy on imps that are active. When the bar gets low, they have 2 or 1 casts left, and that is essentially your trigger to implode if you're looking for AoE damage in 2 or more stacked targets. Outside of that, it's the same thing. You'll cast your Tyrant every minute with the same number of pets in them as possible, and going from there. Now, when it comes to Demonology in AoE, you're going to follow the same 1-minute Tyrant windows that you do basically in single target, but you want to also factor in that a lot of your abilities do passive cleave. Things like casting Called Dreadstalkers, they cleave when they just run into combat here. Demonic Strength and Fellstorm from your Felguard cleaves passively. Your Charhound will cleave also with his baseline just fire AoE that he does. But on top of all that, it's important to factor in Implosion, which is an ability that whenever you summon some imps, hit the button, it will fling all those imps at your target and cause it to AoE around that target. There's almost like there is basically an AOE rotation that you follow. So we're going to set up here a normal city window in a trash pack in M+, and we'll talk about the Implosion rotation. This weak core here once again tracks imps. It shows their remaining duration, their remaining cast, and this is the total number that I have out here. Now, say we're heading into a pack in M+, I'll have typically a handful of demonic cores around, so I'm going to siphon here to replicate that. Whenever you cast Demonic Tyrant, he will extend active imps and freeze their energy by making it gray on this weak core in a sense. So let's say we're heading into a pack here. We're going to cast a Grimoire Felguard into Shadow Bolt, build some shards here, depending what you got. Charhound, just cast Called Dreadstalkers here, it's fine. Hand of Gul'dan, Demon Bolt, Hand of Gul'dan, Demon Bolt, and 1 final Hand of Gul'dan here for the last couple of imps. Tyrant, Demonic Strength, and go from there. These imps are all now frozen. They're going to be just casting freely, not counting down their remaining cast, because Tyrant extends their active duration. Now, whenever Tyrant expires and that duration ends, you're going to see them become colored again here with green or yellow bars here. Right about now, I'm going to implode them all. Now that will happen outside of Tyrants as well. For example, I'll cast Hand of Gul'dan, Demon Bolt, Ruination, or Hand of Gul'dan here again, Demon Bolt, Hand of Gul'dan. And I'm watching this first set right here. Whenever they get to 1, I'm gonna implode. And you want to make sure you keep an eye on that first set of imps whenever you're building that rotation of, Hand of Gul'dan Demon Bolts to build imps and implode, to not let the first set expire. You want to basically build as many imps as possible before you implode for max implosion value. So keep an eye on that first set. Don't let them expire because you're basically just wasting imps at that point in AoE. Outside of that, you want to cast College Red Stalkers on cooldown. They'll apply basically a debuff here. You'll see when they jump in. Right there, it is called Wicked Maw, which makes these targets that are cleaved by them take more damage from Shadow Flame, which does indeed include implosion. So you want to have Wicked Maw active if possible. Whenever you implode, you'll cast Charhound basically on cooldown. Every other one will be the Tyrant, and Demonic Strength with Tyrant every minute. Now the last thing here when it comes to AoE is that if you're playing the Doom talent, whether you're a Soul Harvester or Diabolist, you're going to want to weave targets that you cast Demon Bolt on, because Demon Bolt will indeed apply Doom. For example, if I Demon Bolt right here, applies a Doom. So I'll cast a Hand of Gul'dan here, go over here, apply a Demon Bolt, there's Doom. Hand of Gul'dan, whatever, Ruination, go over here, Demon Bolt, there's a Doom. Once again, Hand of Gul'dan, Demon Bolt, there's a 4th Doom. Now, whenever these Dooms expire, they pop and do damage to surrounding targets right there. Boom. Doom pops, damage is dealt. So if I apply Doom to multiple targets here, like this one here, doesn't do anything. I'm basically wasting a Demon Bolt in a sense for, Doom's application by hitting a target that already has one on it. So if you can spread that around, it is more beneficial. It'll lead to higher overall Doom damage. If you're playing Soul Harvester, you have an ability in the middle of the tree here called Shared Fate that basically acts as a second Doom due to Cuitus. Soul Anathema damage increased by 25, but consuming a demonic core or an instant cast Demon Bolt activates Shared Fate. Shared Fate is a dot on a target that you cast Demon Bolt on through Cuitus. So basically, if you're playing Soul Harvester, it's even more important to be sure to spread those Demon Bolts around because you're going to apply Doom to your target and a second dot as well, which also pulses in AoE. So thanks for watching, guys. Wraps it up, and hopefully it gave you all a better look and understanding at Demonology Warlock in patch 11.1 heading into Season 2 and Liberation of Undermine. If you guys like any weak awareness add-ons or profiles, links to all that up here, as well as down below in the description, you can get them all. And like always, a massive shout out and thank you to my supporters on Patreon, y'all. Thank y'all for all support. It allows me to keep doing what I'm doing for you guys, making content and all that. And like always, I greatly appreciate it. Like we talked about in a few other videos here, Demonology is looking surprisingly strong in 11.1. However, its damage profile is not incredibly favorable in Liberation of Undermine, the raid. That being said, though, that stat cleave profile that it has it's always been pretty good in M+, and this season, if you're looking for like a spec to play in mid-tier to getting into upper keys, it's very consistent. I would say Demonology is that one. It's more consistent than Destruction, Affliction, and honestly, it brings the best single target of all three. When it comes to utility, though, a little lacking. And you'll probably see Destro more on the high end, but one thing I want to drive home here is do not sleep on Demonology this season in M+, because like at 11.0, it's pretty strong. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll catch you all again soon on stream. Peace.